Welcome to OpenFrame, a podcast by Pixieset, the place for photographers and other creatives to have inspiring, honest, and uplifting conversations.
Welcome, Mishi, MGH, Michelle Grace Hunder. How are you doing, mate?
Good. I'm glad you started that with Mishi, which is like the nickname of me for my very close friends. So I like that.
I feel honoured that I can use that. Welcome to Jetta and Calvin, your glorious fur babies sitting right behind you. How you doing? They're licking their legs.
Up the back. Yeah, he's looking. Calvin's looking. He's like, Jetta's right up the back. So she's a black dog. So she's like hiding in the shadows.
Jetta is shrouded in your bed sheet, and Calvin's looking at his knee. All is well in the world, mate. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to have you on today, and I think all of the Pixie listeners will be too, because you've got holy Batman, such a diverse background and an interesting story, and a really unique one with. You know, the niche that you're in is so unique and requires such a different level of effort and work to get there. So I'm really pumped to hear what you have to share about that. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you do currently, how you got there, what you love about it, anything that we should know about the world of MGH.
Sure. Okay, so I am a professional music photographer, and my journey was a little bit different to a lot of people because I didn't actually pick up a camera until I was 31. So I had no interest really in photography before that, and then through a chain of kind of weird events, ended up falling into this job, I guess. I don't even call it a job. It's like I feel like it's more like a purpose. Like I feel like I'm not a spiritual person, but I'm quite there's something that really draws me to the art of photography, and that feels I'm struggling with the words, but it just feels bigger than anything that I've ever done before in my life. And I've had a very big and interesting life before as well, but it's just like there's something about photography that I just adore, and there's something about, I guess, freezing a moment in time that will never be again that really attracts me to the art form. And I haven't got sick of it in the last now I think nearly 12 years. I really love what I do, and I get to work with amazing artists and musicians, and on bringing their music to life in a visual way. So I guess the visual representation of what their music looks like, and how they represent themselves and their image, which is really interesting to me. It's a very, very collaborative process, which I guess is a bit different than other avenues of photography, which I think is why I like it so much. It's it requires a lot of teamwork and a lot of collaboration, which I really enjoy. So it's been the last like I said, close to 12 years of doing this, and it's taken me all around the world and given me experiences that I just could never have imagined that I would be doing, and places that I've seen and people that I've met, and it's so fulfilling. I guess the last couple of years have been interesting, navigating what was and wasn't possible, and how that affected me, because it's like when you do the thing that you love the most in the world and then you're not able to do it, that was interesting. But I feel like we're on the way out, and I'm really feeling really positive about where I am at the moment and stuff that's happening in the near future. So that's, I guess, a little bit about me in a very roundabout way.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rug pull, especially for you, who is on so many planes so regularly doing what you do. For those who haven't deep dived into her work yet, Mishi's shot a rap sheet of the biggest artists in the world, and is touring photographer for a young scallywag called Rule, who You know, for old hats like me, I've always aligned him as, you know, Australia's answer to Justin Bieber. And every now and again I'll check in, and it's quite staggering the reach that he has amongst his audience. It's so to have all of that, you know, that tap completely turned off without any transition must have been a jarring thing. But you said something really interesting about the collaboration process, which is kind of one of the big things that I wanted to ask. And people in weddings know you're crafting, as people like to phrase it, someone's visual legacy, their family legacy. You're crafting something collaboratively that's much bigger than us or them, and the value that has in decades to come is a really unique thing. To do that in music is its own type of unique thing. And I think a lot about the artists that I had on my walls growing up, and, you know, coming into this now and shooting some artists myself and seeing particularly the work you're doing. When I've seen you do what you do, it's kind of helped crack open to me just how collaborative a pop star or a large artist is. It's never just about them. It's a massive machine required to make them work of a whole bunch of equally important parts and cogs. And crucially, one of those is great storytelling of that artist built by us, and in this case, you. So I'm curious for you, how have you been able to be present with what you're doing here, knowing, you know, you grew up as a music fan, you inhaled all of these stories by other eminent photographers. Your idea of an artist was frozen in your brain, not just by their music, but by that one poster shot, you know, on your wall. Now you're that person making that. How have you been able to sit with that and, I guess, be present to how important that is for the artist and for their fans?
Yeah, I guess it kind of, I guess the work that I do with Rule is where that is most evident, I guess, because that relationship with him as an artist started when he was just signed to his management team, which are very, very good friends of mine. And the work that I do with Rule is really unique, and it's different than any other artist that I work with, is that I'm actually part of his creative team. So often, you know, an artist will just get a photographer on to do a campaign, or maybe to get one tour, or, you know, to do one tour or a show or an album cover or whatever. Well, I do everything for Rule. So I do all of his press shots, album covers, live music show. I go on tour with him. So it's like end-to-end photography for him. So it's a very special and unique relationship with him, and a very special, unique and relationship with the team. So everything that we do is incredibly collaborative, not only with Rule, but the rest of the team. So Nate, his manager, Grey Ghost, Jeremy, who I've worked with for so long and has worked collaboratively with me on other projects as well. But Jeremy's Rule's creative director. So everything that I do visually, you know, often it comes from an idea that Jeremy's had, and we're bringing that to life. And also Joel, who's his videographer, we work really closely together on all of the visual stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of photography that I see that is very ego driven, and it's very much about the photographer and the photographer's vision. And whereas this is like less about me and my vision, and very much about Rule, the vision that the creative team is helping to create, and also what he wants that to be. So it's like this moving part that continually evolves with as he's growing as a human being, like just literally getting older and growing as an artist, growing into the next campaign. You know, there's so much that goes into that. So, and I love that process. Like I think too, because, you know, when I picked up a camera, I had no idea what I was doing. I don't think I was a very artistic person, to be honest. I still struggle conceptually, like to just come up with concepts, whereas I see people like Jeremy, who's such an amazing creative director, like that's where he's brilliant. Like he does come up with these high level concepts. but I'm really good at execution. So I'm really good at executing a brief. I'm really good at, seeing how something needs to be lit or how a story needs to be told and being able to deliver on that. So I guess that's how it really works with someone like Rule. And then with other artists that are, I guess it's the same thing, but on a smaller level, because it's, only for one particular project or one, it might be just one tour or one show, but it's always the same process. It's like you're trying to deliver on, what the artist wants in that instance. So for example, I just did Ocean Grove's album campaign. So they're a band that are more in the kind of, hardcore kind of scene. And they had very specific references that were, very 90s inspired grunge rock, punk rock sort of stuff, which, I was so excited to bring that stuff to life because we shot a bunch on film, which I'm really excited to be shooting at the moment. And just those references, like a lot of the 90s iconic music references were what inspired me when I first started. So to get, like I had a whole, often artists will give me like a Pinterest or a mood board to say, this is kind of the direction that we want, which I love. I love getting that. And when I saw their mood board, I was like, oh my God, this is like fisheye and super wide angle and lots of film and poppy colors. And that was so fun to shoot and to bring to life for them. So yeah, I love that process of seeing where they want their visuals to go and then just being able to nail it. Like it's just, I love that, and you get that feedback from an artist of like, you absolutely hit this, you absolutely nailed the brief. And that's just, that's what I live for. So it's super fun.
You mentioned, the whole ego running rampant thing, and your enthusiastically expressed love of a mood board there, I think is really, really unique. Like you hear so much hate for mood boards and people writing big posts smearing Pinterest. I'm like, give me all the Pinterest boards, right? Same. I want to be pulled out of my brain. I want to be pulled out of my patterns. Love that shit. So how has
I love it too.
That and I think something that's trouble for a lot of photographers is like zoning in on their particular area of genius. And if you are like jumping into a siloed industry after not having a previous creative career, I always talk about how my time in advertising agencies was beneficial because you work on briefs and you're I don't want to say but you are a cog in a bigger machine. And I found that so wonderful. And you've obviously, enjoyed similar experiences. So how can photographers that maybe are jumping in to this silo kind of workflow where it's all about them, all about their vision, what do you think things that they can do are that will break them out of that pattern and encourage thoughtful collaboration, restraining of ego, and most importantly, zooming in on their own area of genius, as you've talked about, you've just found yours?
Yeah, I think, because so when you have a style or a particular thing that you like to shoot, you keep going back to that. Like, we get into these traps of I'm really good at this one thing, or I've got this lighting setup that's really great, or, clients will often show me my own work and say, we want this. And it's like the same stuff all the time, which I just think is boring. Like, I just don't get challenged. Like, I'm shooting the same stuff that looks like stuff I've already shot. So when I get a mood board that has, a range of styles, or there's often something that I'll pick that will just challenge me a little bit and go, okay. I mean, there's definitely times I get mood boards where I'm like, okay, I actually don't think this is me at all. And sometimes I'll be like, hey, I actually know someone that would shoot this style better than me. Because that's the other part of it. It's like you want to be able to nail a brief, and if you see a bunch of references, it's just not your style at all. But occasionally I'll be like, oh, maybe I'll just give this a crack. Maybe I'll just really challenge myself to try and do something really different, or pick if we have to do 3 or 4 setups in a day, pick one that's just like super left of center that I've, never done before. It's like really challenged me. I just want to try something really different. But I think for me, like like I've always been able just to remove my ego and go, this is actually not about me. This is about the artist. And I have a set of skills that are able to deliver on what they want to be able to achieve this. So it's like, I don't know, I guess having the confidence in your abilities to be able to deliver something, that is enough for me, rather than going, I need to completely direct this shoot and it needs to be my vision. And like, it's the more like, no, I've got 12 years of experience now where I can look at something and know how that's lit, know what I need to do to achieve that, and then be able to deliver that. That's where I get, I guess, my validation from, rather than having to control the whole thing and it be my vision, if that makes sense.
So I wonder how we restrain that at scale, because I think this is a really challenging thing for a lot of emerging artists now, right? They're bombarded with all this fucking Gary V bullshit, hustle and like build a mountain and become king here. And like, I find it so intolerable, and it lends itself so much to like being the hero of the story instead of being part of something great and being part of something bigger. And I think it's such a tough thing for people to navigate. This thing of like restraining ego, there's so much kind of like built into it.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I fell into that trap when I first started, for sure, thinking that it had to be all about me. And we all do, I think, because I think that's, like you said, you're bombarded with it. That's the messaging. What I think I learned is that, like, what do clients want? Like, clients want you to be able to deliver on what they want. And like, yes, sometimes we know, clients don't have the best taste and you need to navigate or like kind of push them into a direction slightly, or maybe narrow their vision because, they've got this grand plan, but their budget is like tiny. So you need to manage expectations. But all of that is part of the skill, I think, in being able to develop really good relationships and being able to provide a service to a client where they'll continually come back to you. Because like repeat clients is what keeps our business alive. So if you think that you want to make it all about you and you just want to take over and be overbearing, I mean, I've heard the stories about those photographers, and they're not the ones that people enjoy working with. But if you can be more collaborative and enjoyable to work with, flexible when things change, not get into a big hissy fit or whatever, and be able to deliver on a brief, I think that's when clients will continually come back to you. And then I think as your relationship develops with artists and the trust, they start to put more trust in you, then they're going to give you way more control. Do you know what I mean? It kind of comes out of the wash anyway as you develop relationships. It's like, it's much more frequent for me now to somebody say, oh, we just want you to do what you do. Do you know what I mean? Like, we know you're going to be able to deliver on that. And I still will like push them for a little bit of guidance as well, because again, I'm not amazing conceptually and I do like a little bit of direction, but once you've got a little bit of direction, you can be like, right, I know what we can do with this. We can really build on this, and off we go in this direction. I think that, like, I don't like when someone just says, oh, we just want you to come up with the idea. That actually really frustrates me because I don't like, I don't like it at all. I mean, I've seen like those conversations that you've said too, often in some of the wedding groups I'm in, but they don't like the mood boards, or they're like, how dare they provide me what I should be shooting on the day. They've seen my folio, blah, blah, blah. And like,
do they know who I am?
They don't, yeah. And I'm just like, oh God, get over yourself. But it's, for weddings specifically, it's someone's most important day of their life, like in their head, and they've got a vision of what they want that to look like. And unless the references just look nothing like I'd ever shot, that's when I would have red flags and be like, okay, this is not what I do. But if they're just like, poses, or I'd love to get something like this on the date. Like, why would you be offended by that? I feel like that's positive. I don't know. Maybe I just look at it really differently.
Mishi, you'll remember this because what some people might not know is that you and I used to shoot weddings together, and this is particularly relevant now because this is one wedding we did, and we, love. Oh my God, they're the loveliest couple in the world. But I was asked to do something that I would. It's not what I do. Holding up a frame and having people in the distance in the frame. That's not my style. In that moment, my job is to say, yes, this is amazing. What a great idea. Let's do it and absolutely smash it. Make them feel super important. Everyone's happy. And, I can still get the things that I think are important. At least try it.
Totally.
You'll come out with something, we have this barrier to pushing our own boundaries or just risking that something might suck. And that's okay,
It's okay if it sucks. That's the thing. Or I don't know. Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, that we've all seen those references where you're just cringing and you're just like, okay, if there's something that you wouldn't want out in the world that has your name on it, for example, those wedding photos where there's I don't know, it looks like the girl's giving him a blowjob or something. It's just real distasteful.
Guns, right.
Or guns, there's stuff that I think morally or ethically you're like, this just is gross, mate. That's, I'd probably draw a line there. But if it's just trying something that you haven't tried before, or there's like you said, putting up a frame, or sometimes people, they don't like those veil photos. I'm just thinking of weddings specifically because this is where I hear the complaints a lot. But I don't know, something that you just don't want to try. Just who cares? If they're going to love it, it might be the photo they love the most. And then they're going to remember that you took it and they're so happy with this photo. And then they're going to refer all their friends to you because they're so stoked. I don't know. I just don't feel like it's a negative thing.
I feel like we forget the job isn't and this goes for music photography too. The job isn't to make the album cover. The job isn't just to make the, artistic, moody photo. The job is to show them love and have a bit of fun. It's not just about the finished JPEG they're getting.
Oh my God. I've always, that's my goal is, especially with musicians, because I think 90% of photo shoots, they'll say to me, they'll arrive and they're like, I hate having my photo taken, or I've had a really bad experience before. I just don't like this process. And I just have to win them over. And every time, for me, it's the challenge of, I want this experience to be the best photography experience that they've ever had. This is what I want them to remember that photo shoots are like, not what they've had previously. I want it to be quick, I want it to be painless, and I want the results to be great. So those things are really important to me. And 9 times out of 10, that's the response. They're just like, oh my God, this was so easy, or this was so fun. And that's about creating a mood and an environment that is fun. And we have the best job in the world. Why would we make it hard or tedious or stressful or whatever? It can be a really fun environment where, they want to come back for more. That's, I think, the goal.
And you get to in the process of that, it's kind of what you touched on. You get to undo all of these decades of soft trauma of what they thought a photo shoot is. You get to just flip that around in the space of half an hour and make them feel safe and totally change their opinion on an entire genre of work.
Yeah, it's so common that people have had bad experiences with either photographers or photos, on a photo shoot. So yeah, wanting to change that, make it really a memorable experience and something that they're not cringing over, or they, a lot of photographers make, people do dumb shit. That's the other thing is being able to read body language, or, you always want to push people potentially a little bit out of their comfort zone. But if they're just absolute, I don't want to do that pose, or I don't, that just feels weird, you're going to see it all over their face. The photo's going to be shit because it's all of that body language is going to come through the photo. So just being, I know I'm hypersensitive to that stuff. So as soon as someone starts feeling uncomfortable, I'm like, nah, let's move on. Let's do something different. So yeah, it's all about, I'm big on positive affirmations and making them feel great and just telling them when they're doing the right thing. And because they feed off that, and they just, start to relax, and then it makes the whole process like so much easier.
Those subtle language things are so key. Like I have a rule, I do not use the word no on any photo shoot, period. Like if someone says is something a good idea or can we try this, the answer is yes. And if it's a shit, terrible idea, I'm like in my head, let's get this done as quick as I can and we'll transition it.
Totally.
Number one thing is making them feel like they're doing absolutely everything right, because that energy comes out in everything.
It really does. Even if it often works, even if they're not doing something right, but just sort of positively giving them lots of positive words, and then you're going to get to that place, like, or they, oh, that's really close, like, let's just, just keep giving them really positive words, I think, and praise and validation, or they look great, oh my god, this is perfect, all that stuff.
There's a lot of
I get really excited when I'm seeing what I want to see too, so that's like they definitely feed off that. If I will like jump around and shout and just be like, oh my god, we just got this is magic.
Oh my god, they need to see that. Yes.
Also too, I've been told too that it's written all over my face when it's not going well.
Right.
Like having to be really aware of, I mean, this is early on, but like be aware of that and just not show that and just move on to something else.
That's something no one talks about, right? And I had a similar revelation 5 years ago. Someone took a photo of me shooting and I looked like I looked murderous. And I just thought I was concentrating, right? And I'm like, okay, I need to make a calculated effort to slowly change how I'm holding my face because I look really, really serious and it's not, conducive to energy. So
yeah, totally. Once you become aware of it, I think, I had a friend that, sneeze, sorry. Came out of nowhere. I had a friend once tell me on a photo shoot that wasn't going really well. She's just like, you could just see it all over your face. And I was trying everything to make it work.
That feedback is so good.
Yeah. And it was just, it was one of those rare times where like nothing was working on the day. This is literally going back probably 11 years or something. But now I've just learned that, if a setup's not working or whatever, you just move on. You just like, okay, this is not working. Let's just try something else. And I don't get stuck in a moment of like, I have to make this work. Like if it's not working, it's like, let's just move on to something else. Let's try something else. Or that's why I love having a really loose plan of like a few different setups and then time just to experiment, try some new techniques, play, I think is the best word for that time, where it's just like, let's just do some like, I don't know, some long exposure stuff, or let's just do some stuff that's like, we might just get that one shot that's magic. Actually the latest rule just his latest single cover is a really good example of that, where we had a set, bunch of stuff we wanted to shoot, and then I just wanted to try some long exposure where he was just like kind of flicking his hair like this with this one particular lighting setup. And we get this shot, and when we saw it, all of us were like, that's the cover. Like we just knew it straight away. It was just like, you create something really special. There's a moment there there's movement where his hair's flicking, and it's that experimental time. You just allow a bit of time just to have a bit of a play, because sometimes you'll just create something that's just magic. So
such a tangible thing, isn't it? Like it sounds esoteric and fluffy, but it's so not. It's like have to play, like have to be asking what if, right?
Yeah, I think
cultivating a space for that.
I think too, because I'm very intuitive photographer. Like I'm not an overly, I've had to become a more technically minded photographer, kind of in recent years, but I never was. So I like just, I don't know, not really knowing what I was doing and just trial and error and play. And that's like how I got to be really good at what I do, is just trying stuff. So I still allow time to do that and push the boundaries, or do something a little bit outside the box, or that one frame that is, it could just be a complete accident, or like one of your lights don't fire or something, and then you're just like, holy shit, that is magic. Like I didn't mean for that to be, but that is the one. I love when that happens. Like it's really cool.
Awesome. You mentioned something back there about something that to me is such a huge part of your entire working career in this stuff. And it's the R word, relationships, and like how important that's been. How do you feel that photographers could maybe shift their focus away? And, you know, again, if we go back to the whole massive capitalist empire building thing, sure, we need to like build a business that works, that pays us, that allows us to do all these things. As you know, like having that as an end goal is like kind of untenable and super distractive to making good work that makes people happy. Whereas you can get to the same endpoint by focusing on relationships or play. How do you feel people could like steer themselves in the right direction that ends up paying off from a business point of view by focusing more on relationships and cultivating better relationships?
Oh, it's easy because the relationships that you make are the people that hire you. So it's, for me, like, I don't like the word networking. I think it's like really, I don't know, it's just a bit gross and feels like calculated. So rather than saying networking or even thinking about networking, for me, it's just about making genuine friendships and relationships with people who are the people that hire you. Like, it's just like, and when I started my business, I didn't know how to meet artists and get to work with them. So I just, you know, went to all the shows and was just meeting people really organically so they knew who I was. Like, I just didn't know any other way of why people would hire me. And it just happens really organically. There's a person with the camera that's going to all these shows, and we need to get her at our show because she was at that show. And
so you were giving, you were just focusing on relentlessly giving for the love of it.
Relentlessly giving at the start. Yeah, very much so at the start. And then when people start to come to you, well, you're like, okay, then that's when you can start charging because they're coming to me for a service rather than me continually going and providing photographs. And there's a very definitive line in the sand where people start coming to you for work. It's people always say to me, when do you start charging? It's like, well, at the moment that people are coming to you rather than you continually asking to collaborate with someone, But yeah, and being part of a community, like not just sitting back. The biggest mistake that I see people make, especially music photographers, is they shoot for publications, they're at all these shows, but there's no relationships with artists, there's no relationships with community, there's no relationships with managers, PR, anything. All they're doing is shooting for one publication or two publications. They go to a show, it's great, they get to see the show, but the artist doesn't know who they are. The management don't know who they are. So there's absolutely no reason that the management would reach out to them in the future. So what they expect is that the artist will see the photos, or the management will see the photos and be like, oh my God, these are the best photos that I've ever seen. I'm going to get this person to shoot this, or I'm going to get this person to go on tour. That never happens. Like, they're not going to take a person they've never met on the road for 6 weeks. Are you crazy? Like, people that tour are very well-known people within a touring party or a band. They're often friends because you want people around you that you can hang out with, that you get along with, like that, they're just not going to pluck someone from obscurity. And very, very, very rarely happens. So that's going to be a really good fit for the whole band. Like, so you have to establish those relationships beforehand. You can't just expect that they're just going to pluck you from obscurity and off you go. You're going to go on a world tour. Like, it just doesn't happen like that. So I just think being part of the wider community is like the biggest tip that I have, is like literally inserting yourself in the culture, in the community. You're one of, I'm part of the music community here. Like, I think that my name and Australian music is quite synonymous now because I've done that on purpose. Like, I am a music photographer. Like, I've boxed myself into this little niche, but on purpose, because I want to be known as a photographer that documents Australian music. So that means going to events, going to not just gigs, but like you know, I go to networking events, I go to, you know, events that, you know, International Women's Day for, you know, in the music industry, and or there's a touring event for Sounds Australia, or all of those different, or there's a Music Victoria event, just meeting everybody, or there's an APRA event, all of those musical organizations that have something to do with music that I want to connect with. I want to know that, I want them to know who I am. So I just am going to those things and showing support, my presence, showing support, you know, being there, being part of the community, I just think is so important. And it's something that a lot of people either are very nervous about. They struggle with that sort of thing, I guess, because it does involve, you know, more interpersonal skills. And, you know, lots of people are introverts or they have anxieties around that stuff. And I understand that, like, not everyone has an outgoing personality. However, I think it's such a key part of success that if you don't push yourself to be like that, I think you're going to struggle. I think it's going to be not impossible, but I think it's going to be a much bigger hurdle. So it's just one of those ways I think people need to push themselves to get out there a little bit more.
Knowing how synonymous your name is with music photography in Australia and beyond, that might be just about the single most useful thing that I've ever heard just for photographers. And I think a really great note to wrap up on, it's community, and not just it's a fluffy idea, but everything you've said, like all of those practical ways to insert yourself in the conversation as someone part of that scene in a gifting, not disingenuous way.
Yeah, have to be organic though, because people can, if you're doing it in a way that feels like you're just promoting yourself and you're not giving back to the community, I think it's people are quite allergic of that. It needs to be a two-way street. You need to be a valuable asset to the community, so that they, you know, like I said, it's a two-way street then. So at the start there's lots of giving, do you know what I mean? And then, you know, it's a fine line to understand. You don't want to be taken advantage of, but you do want people to know who you are and people to know that you're really good at what you do. And some of that involves lots of giving at the start. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, just doing it in a really organic way, and not being pushy, or it's not just about selling yourself and your brand and your personality. It's really about you being part of that community.
That's incredible advice, and picking an industry that you clearly love and you can like ride that energy train on for the right reasons without worrying about all the other shit. And then whatever happens, which clearly for you has been incredible stuff.
Yeah, I think I've been really fortunate. There's been a few things that have happened along the way. You know, there's a bit of luck involved in stuff. There's also a lot of hard work that a lot of people didn't see. I mean, you saw it because you were there the whole time, but a lot of people didn't see the hard yards that are just grinding for so many years. You know, but then I just think that hard work does pay off, and it's just one of those things that eventually you'll get a little lucky break where somebody sees that talent and gives you a little bit of a leg up. So, and that's what I try and do now. I'm in a space where I'm mentoring, and if I notice something about somebody, then I'll just put so much energy and time into giving them opportunities and trying to lift them up, you know, so you can give to the next generation.
Passing that elevator down. And what's it saying? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
100% true. Yeah.
What are the places, because you mentioned you've got a mentoring thing going on. Can you tell us where we find your body of work? And we'll have all of these links posted below.
Sure. I guess so. During COVID, I wrote an entire masterclass. So if you are interested in the pathways to music photography specifically, I did like a brain dump of everything that I know I've learned over the last kind of 12 years.
It's massive.
It's actually huge. I Maddie, who you put me onto recently to help me market this project, we actually went through it the other day, and she's like, I don't think I've seen a course this comprehensive.
Oh my God,
so
amazing.
That's really positive. There's so much information. It's not one of those just, oh, do this online course and you get 3 things. It's like, you know, there's lots and lots of information with how to start music photography and how to get paid and all of the legalities and just all the stuff that, all those unwritten rules that people don't tell you about. And like I said, 12 years of information.
Incredible.
So that's one, is that's just mghmasterclass.com. And the other thing is that I started streaming on Twitch during COVID as well. So that's a good way of, I'm just having a bit of a break at the moment. I think I'll start properly back when I get back from overseas. But, you know, there's a community of people there that have been following me on Twitch now for, 2 years. And I've made it a place that is very nurturing, very encouraging. A lot of photography spaces I have felt in the past have been quite negative or toxic or discouraging, or there's an elitism about it. This is like the opposite of that. This is all about those things I was talking about before, but play, experimenting, showing your work, you know, giving tips to each other. But it's I've really cultivated a very encouraging kind of no dickhead policy. I just don't tolerate any crap in there, and it's just lots and lots of lovely photographers from all around the world. So yeah, that's my Twitch was just Michelle G Hunder. Most of my socials are Michelle G Hunder, so you can find me that way.
Bloody amazing, mate. We will have all of those below. Thanks for sharing your totally unique buckets of wisdom, and have a fabulous day.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.